Welcome to Business Resilience Decoded. I am your host, Vanessa Mathews, the founder and chief resilience officer of Asfalis Advisors. Today we have a guest, a mentee, a friend, and a very accomplished professional that is lined up today. She will be speaking on the topic of transitioning from a historically Black college and university to a career in emergency management. So let's jump right in and meet Destiny Ruffin. She's an emergency management specialist with the Atlanta-Fulton County Emergency Management Agency. Hi, Destiny.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. So I told Destiny we are having a conversation at a round table, and that's how this is going to flow. So I'm really excited to talk with her. So Destiny, can you tell our listeners about you and what you do in emergency management?
Well, I am a resident born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. As Vanessa said, I actually got my degree from Savannah State University in emergency management. So a little bit about myself, I'm more into the community. I love community work. That's something that I'm just really passionate, even with work as well as outside of work. I'm very passionate with being in the community, educating people on things they need to know. So, but as far as what I do, I actually serve as an emergency management specialist. And that kind of varies of a lot of different things. That consists of planning, community outreach, logistics, a little bit of everything. So,
a little birdie told me that you were working on the Super Bowl. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about that too?
Yeah, so I did get the pleasure of serving on actually 3 different planning committees for the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 53, which was held in Atlanta in 2019. So I actually served as my agency's public information officer. So I served on that committee with those people, as well as mass care and the possibility of what if we have to move a mass number of people from another location.
Love it. So there's 2 things Destiny and I have in common. Number 1, we both graduated from Savannah State University. Number 2, we both worked for the Atlanta-Fulton County Emergency Management Agency. And I can guarantee you, so Savannah State's motto is you can get anywhere from here. Destiny, did you think that you'd be working with the Super Bowl?
I will be honest, first going into emergency management, no clue. I didn't even know that there were even a possibility of them being able to help in planning.
I love it. Well, congratulations. And it's definitely been a pleasure to watch you from afar. So I'm happy to see what you're doing. I'd like to get your perspective and just want you to describe your HBCU experience. And specifically, why emergency management? I mean, you had so many options. Why emergency management?
I think for my HBCU experience, to me, I'm a first generation college student. So that was very something that means so much to me. And I just created a list of things that I was always hesitant to do, that I just jumped in there and started doing, and got the opportunity to really, at my HBCU, go outside of the school and really get to explore other universities and get to interact with other people outside that I normally wouldn't actually associate with or even have a conversation with. So that was pretty dope, and I really gained that. And emergency management, which is kind of funny because initially I was going into sociology, and a little birdie told me that, do you really want to do sociology? So, but I know for me, I've always been like a social studies type of girl. Like I love government, I love law, I was interested in different other things of that nature. So I actually took the intro class, not knowing if I really wanted to actually pursue this as a degree. So going into the intro class, I was like, oh my God, I could see myself possibly getting into this. I was like, it was something that was fairly new, but because I knew a little bit about FEMA. So when I knew, I was like, well, you know what? There's local emergency management agencies. So I went for it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to change my degree to the emergency management degree program. And that was it.
So when I came to Savannah State, they were in the first year of building out that program, and we were part of the first class of graduates. And so you're right, it was new. After Hurricane Katrina, George W. Bush put in the funding and the resources so that we could have degree programs in the industry. So Savannah State was actually the first historically Black college in the nation to carry the dual degree of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. So shout out to Savannah State right now.
You know, people always say they have a degree program there. Yes.
Right, yeah. So 82% of emergency managers are white males. And our last podcast, or a couple podcasts ago, Chauncey Willis talked about those data and statistics coming from the Department of Labor. And so I've had my own experiences of working in a predominantly white field as a Black face, a Black woman, and being under the age of 50. I always tell people there's 3 things that can work for me or against me. It just depends on where I'm at, right? And so when you think about those numbers in emergency management, can you talk about your experiences as a Black woman transitioning into emergency management from an HBCU? What did you observe? Things of that nature.
Well, I will say this. I'm not sure with your degree, when you were doing your degree, but when I was doing my degree program, it kind of got a little diverse. I'm going to say that because a lot of my classmates were already in the military or already in law enforcement. So we had a kind of a balance. We had people who were, actually just going into college. Then we had people who were already in established careers. So early on, I realized that a lot of people from the public safety sector were actually getting into it. So I kind of got a familiar that possibly I might be one of the only ones in the room. So when I transitioned into being an intern and I would go to all the meetings with my director, everyone would look at me like I was a unicorn. It was like, she's your intern? And they're like, yeah, she's our intern. She actually has a degree in emergency management. So I think for me, it was an eye opener for me because coming from an HBCU, you're used to the people you're used to seeing. And when you go into the transition for emergency management, you don't see anybody that look like you. Like, I was just grateful that at the time, our deputy director, she was a Black female and she was a Black one. She was very strong. And I remember her giving me those conversations like, you're going to be in training or you're going to be in a meeting and you're going to be the only one that looks like you. Mm. How are you going to feel comfortable? Are you going to be guarded? Are you going to be a shining star? Or what are you going to do? And how are you going to be able to handle it? Because you're not going to be able to handle it. This field is not for you. Let me know that to prepare me for, there's a possibility that somebody might not look like you. So are you going to be able to stand in front of them and actually teach them or tell them what you know? Or are you going to freeze up? So yeah, it's definitely an experience.
The early part of my career was in emergency management, and Atlanta Fulton County was the second agency that I worked at. And then I went over to the corporate world. And I would say that what I hoped that what I would have preferred my HBCU to teach me was how to maintain my own confidence when I'm in an environment where people do not value me, where people don't give me the opportunity to speak up. And more importantly, when I am being led by a manager who's not invested in me, because their own upbringing, they may not have ever had to value diverse or minority people. And so those were some of the obstacles that I had to go through in corporate America and in the government sector. And so those are a couple of things for me that shine light on that. And major thanks to Pansy Ricks. I worked with her as well, and I know she's amazing. And representation matters. So to your point, in the city of Atlanta, Black people are normal in business. And it's not a surprise. And so everybody kind of looks like you. We call it Chocolate City. And so that's an amazing place when you can go to work and you see people in leadership who look like you, because it tells you that you belong, right? And you can have a place there. And I think it shows because you've been at AFSEMA for a while.
I have been at AFSEMA for a while. I actually have some state experience. I left and I came back, which was a whole different ball game as well. That one was more so, I don't think I was prepared for the state and that atmosphere, because the state of Georgia, when people think of Georgia, think of Atlanta. Oh, but you're in the hub of all this development and Black people. Yeah, that's not the entire state. That's just one portion of the state. So going there, I kind of got experience, and I never really seen anybody look like me there. Yep. I was just grateful that my director at the time, but she ended up leaving. So I was like, oh, nope. Gotta go.
Yeah. Wanted to ask you, so you're in the city of Atlanta, a critical place for the civil rights movement as well. How has it been for you as an emergency manager with COVID-19 and civil unrest in your city?
It's been pretty busy for us. Like, we are leading with Fulton County Board of Health with COVID and testing and getting gathering PPE and all that good stuff. But in the midst of that, we have civil unrest. Now, for some of us, we really haven't experienced it as much as the other people around the country have. So for us, it was something new, and you're inserting that with a pandemic right now. So it's been very hard, long nights. I'm going to tell you, long days and long nights. Atlanta is one of those areas where we're the state capital, but we're across the street from the state of Georgia government. So we're in the midst of everything right now. We have a big hub of high numbers of cases, as well as a high number of civil unrest and people protesting and people feeling a certain type of way about what's going on across the country. So
for me, I describe this as my passion is finally meeting my purpose, right? Because we were born for this. That's why we're in the field of Homeland Security, emergency management, crisis risk, but also who we are at our core in terms of Black women is being attacked. And so this is an opportunity for us to manage that. So that's exciting. And I'm not surprised that you guys are busy. I look to Atlanta a lot for some direction and have definitely enjoyed Mayor Keisha Lance's bottom. So I'm glad to see that you guys are doing well. Looking back, what recommendations do you have for students who are transitioning from an HBCU to the field of emergency management, as we kind of are in a space where currently we lack some diversity?
One recommendation I have is actually go out into the community, CERT, community emergency response teams, or even for me, like I went to volunteer after a disaster to just see kind of figure out what you're getting into. It's not a glitz and glam field. You're not going to be rich. You're not going to have all the accolades in the world, but it's going to give you some form of, pleasure for me, because I'm going out to helping people. Like, I'm all about informing people. A lot of people get into issues because they don't know, they're not informed of how can you prepare yourself? How can you mitigate? How can you do all these other things that we as emergency managers, we know firsthand and we're able to, but our community are not. So I'm all about it. I think you just got to really kind of get into the field where you got to, I say intern or even just volunteer to see if this is really something that you can handle, because it's very overwhelming at times. It's not as cutthroat like other things.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. And then, so along those same lines, what recommendations do you have for your colleagues in emergency management that are in hiring positions to truly move the needle on creating a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion in emergency management?
I think that's the only way the field is really going to grow. You got to kind of know the people. And sometimes the people don't look like you think they do, or have the same things that you have or you're going through. So I always tell people, know the people, get to talking to people, more importantly.
So it sounds like expand your relationships. That's amazing, Destiny. Where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Destiny Ruffin. I'm pretty sure I should be the first one to come up, but if not, you just can go strong through.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. Thanks for tuning in to Business Resilience Decoded with the Disaster Recovery Journal and Asfalis Advisors. Subscribe, share, and download, and look out for future episodes.